All right, sit down and pay attention because today's explainer is going to reveal that most of you have been living a complete and utter biological lie. I mean it. If you think you know what a lime is, you are sorely, sorely mistaken.
You see, the so-called Spanish lime has absolutely nothing to do with citrus. Zero. It is a complete biological identity fraud, entirely unrelated to those tart little green fruits you pick up in your local grocery store. So it's time we set the record straight and finally debunk this myth.
Here is our syllabus for today. First, the great botanical lie. Second, indigenous roots versus colonial laziness. Third, anatomy of a mamancio. Fourth, the giant seed shocker. Fifth, famine flower survival hacks. And finally, a 5-century-old mistake. Let's get into it.
Section 1. The Great Botanical Lie.
So despite its round, green, very citrusy appearance, the mamanchillo is basically a biological spy. It actually belongs to the Sapindaceae, or soapberry family. It exists in a botanical category completely isolated from lemons and limes, which makes its most common English name a total blatant fabrication. You've literally been calling a soapberry a lime all this time, which, let's be honest, is frankly a little embarrassing.
Moving on to Section 2. Indigenous roots versus colonial laziness.
Look, long before European colonization, indigenous peoples had already properly identified this vital staple of the tropical landscape. They called it guanipe, or canipa. Now, those are names rooted in a deep cultural connection to the land and an actual, true understanding of the plant. But then, in the 1500s, Spanish colonizers arrived, saw a small green fruit, and basically just threw their hands up. In a staggering display of sheer laziness, they erased the original indigenous terminology and branded it lemon solo, or little lime. They completely abandoned actual botanical science and just named it based on the most superficial visual similarity imaginable. Unbelievable.
Just trace this timeline of ignorance with me. In the pre-colonial era, it thrives perfectly under its rightful indigenous names. Then the 1500s hit, and we get this utterly lazy rebranding from the Spanish. Fast forward to the modern day, and millions of people are walking around using a factually incorrect translation. A linguistic glitch from the 16th century has cemented a permanent, completely erroneous place in our modern culinary culture. Society literally just accepted a 500-year-old error rather than bother to correct the botanical record.
Section 3. Anatomy of a mamancio.
Okay, so the structure of this fruit is a bizarre departure from standard citrus. It features this tough, green, leathery skin that you must manually crack open, almost like cracking a thin eggshell. Inside, you won't find segmented juice vesicles. No. Instead, you're greeted by a single, smooth coating of incredibly vibrant, gooey orange flesh. And the taste? It boasts a tart sweetness that honestly rivals artificial candy. It is a literal biological masterpiece of sugar hiding inside a totally unassuming shell.
But I want to ask you directly, yes, you watching this. If you were walking through the jungle and you cracked open a tough green shell only to find bright, gooey orange guts staring right back at you, would you eat it? Or would you immediately assume it was highly toxic? Seriously, let me know in the comments. Because frankly, it's an incredibly intimidating appearance for something so delicious, and I heavily suspect most of you would drop it and run for the hills.
Section 4. The giant seed shocker. Here's the kicker. The part you actually eat is the smallest part of the entire fruit. It is maddening. Beneath that thin layer of orange flesh is a massive seed, taking up nearly the entire interior volume. You literally have to suck the flavor right off the seed itself. It's a highly interactive, super messy eating experience that commercial agriculture has entirely bred out of modern fruits just for the sake of lazy convenience.
Section 5. Famine Flora Survival Hacks.
Now, most of you probably just ignorantly throw this giant seed straight into the trash, but it is actually a dense energy bank. Let's look at the survival protocol here. Step 1, you extract the massive seed from the orange flesh. Step 2 requires a heat source. You must roast the seed over an open fire or stove, which completely transforms its composition, giving it a dense, nutty flavor that is remarkably similar to a roasted chestnut. And step 3? That requires some heavy equipment for an emergency situation, like a mortar and pestle or milling stones. You take those hard, roasted seeds and crush them down completely until you yield a fine, highly caloric survival flour.
This survival flour allowed communities to stay fed when other crops failed. In historically challenging environments, this wasn't just some fun little tropical snack. No, it was a critical lifeline. As a highly dependable famine food, the mamanchillo kept populations alive when traditional agriculture simply withered away due to drought or disaster.
Section 6, a 5-century-old mistake.
500. Just let that number hang in the air for a second. This fruit isn't rare. It grows in almost every single tropical region on Earth. And yet, for 500 years, because of a lazy colonial rebranding, we have been calling it a lime. We are essentially eating a 500-year-old historical mistake every single time we pick up one of these incredibly common tropical fruits.
Think about it. We took an indigenous botanical treasure, slapped a lazy, completely incorrect name on it just because it was green and round, and completely ignored the fact that it is a survival powerhouse with edible chestnut-like seeds and candy-flavored guts. We are standing right next to a botanical masterpiece, and most of the world doesn't even know its real name. Now that's absolutely wild.